This is why it's always ridiculous when people are like, why won't you go and see it for yourself? Like when, you know, Zionist chatters will be like, there's no problem in the West Bank. What do you mean? There's no problem in Israel. Why don't you go and visit it? It's like, there you go, dude. This is what happens when you go and fucking visit, okay? Well, I'm gonna get to the U.S. activist shot dead in Occupy West Bank, who is an American of Turkish descent, like an activist. The State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said, "We are aware of the tragic death of an American citizen, Ayşenur Egi, today in the West Bank. We offer our deepest condolences to her family and loved ones. We are urgently gathering more information about the circumstances of her death, and we'll have more to say as we learn more. We have no higher priority than the safety and security of American citizens." Obviously, the reality of the matter is, yeah, they said allegedly. Wild. How has Ayşenur Egi allegedly been shot dead in the West Bank? She's literally dead. She was shot in the head by the Israeli military and no signs of life. This isn't even saying allegedly Israel did it. It's suggesting that her actual death is alleged.
American woman has allegedly been shot dead in the West Bank during pro-Palestinian demonstrations against settlement expansion.
Oh, here's the other one. American activist shot dead in Occupy West Bank. She was shot in the head. Important context. She was shot in the head by Israeli forces. Israeli media, we did it. U.S. media, who knows? American Turkish activist killed by Israeli forces at the West Bank protest. From the Jerusalem Post, by the way. Middle East crisis. American woman shot and killed at West Bank protests. America, once again, is quite literally outflanking Israeli media on this because the American State Department is still refusing to reckon with the reality. Let's
turn to the Middle East because Israeli forces are reported to have shot dead a 26-year-old American activist in the occupied West Bank. Ayşenur Egi, who's of Turkish descent, is said to have been taking part in a protest against Jewish settlement expansion in the town of Beta near Nablus. Turkey has described her death as, quote, a murder. The Israeli military says shots were fired at someone who they described as, quote, a central instigator because they were throwing stones at troops, and says the incident is now.
By the way, here's how you know this is like completely indefensible. Even their defense for it is like, even if she were to be doing that, which she wasn't, I don't think that she was. No witnesses have said that. It's still completely unacceptable. Do you understand? Completely and utterly unacceptable. Like, they won't even fucking lie about something that is defensible. Okay? I have to pee again. I'll be back.
Investigate. The US says it's urgently seeking information about the death. Well, our World Affairs correspondent in Jerusalem, Mike Thompson, has some of the latest.
She was attending what's apparently a regular demonstration against settlement expansion in the West Bank, which has been increasing at quite a pace. And apparently, or according to local media, Israeli troops tried to suppress the demonstration. They used, it said, live ammunition, stun grenades, and tear gas to try and stop what was happening. And in the midst of all this, it thought the young American woman was hit in the head. She was then taken to hospital in Nablus, but medics there were unable to save her life, and she was pronounced dead.
I know this has happened only in the last hour or so in terms of the details leaking out. Has there been any reaction? Because only last week, for example, the US State Department imposing more sanctions because they're so concerned at some of the things happening in the West Bank with settlers.
Indeed, that's quite right, Matthew. Yes, the US has taken that action because there's been growing concern about settler violence. It was only a few weeks ago in the village of Jit in the West Bank that around 100 settlers invaded the village, and cars were burnt, homes were burnt down, and a local resident was killed in the clashes that followed. And these attacks have been increasing.
Dude, it's crazy how much Western media tries to fucking run defense on like utterly indefensible situations. I don't know how to explain it beyond like, the Israeli military shot an American citizen directly in the fucking head, okay? They've done this before. They do it all the time in Gaza, but they've also done this in the West Bank. They did this to another American legal permanent resident a couple of years ago in 2021, if you recall. A very famous journalist, Shireen Abu Akleh. This is the exact same circumstances. Right now, they're covering it as though like, oh, well, there's a lot of chaos and they shot him in the shooting. It's like, no, dude, there wasn't a lot of chaos. Here's a fucking eyewitness.
Today is no accident. It is the continuation of the killing of 17 of Beta's residents during demonstrations since 2021. It is an intentional killing that is now receiving the light of day, receiving the light of day because she is an American citizen. It was an intentional killing that cannot be justified. My name is Jonathan Pollack. I was there when she was shot. We got to Beta for the weekly demonstration against the settlement there. The army was already present where people pray in protest of the settlement. As soon as the prayer ended, clashes ensued, and the army shot tear gas and live ammunition immediately. We were forced to retreat down towards the village and ended up standing at the outskirts of the built-up area of the village, about 150, 200 meters away from where the soldiers were. We stayed there for about half an hour. Soldiers at some point took over a rooftop that has a view of the entire area, including where we were.
Israel has been granted a right to kill American citizens. The U.S. government will do nothing. I mean, they have. They have done this before. It's not the first time. Turkey is expressing far more anger about the alleged killing of a U.S. Turkish citizen by Israel than the U.S. is. Turkey says, we condemn this murder committed by the Netanyahu government. The U.S. says, we are aware of the tragic death. We offer our deepest condolences. This article, this was up on r/World News and got deleted pretty quick. It's insane how Zionist a huge sub is, and Reddit in general. Yeah. I am, of course, reminded of the state-sanctioned murder of American activist Rachel Corrie many years prior. By the way, this war started on October 7. Here is how one American rabbi replied to that many years later at this point, by the way. This is Rachel Corrie, who was crushed to death by IDF bulldozers. Israeli bulldozer kills American protester, runs over 23-year-old woman. An Israeli bulldozer killed an American woman Sunday who had been protesting its use to destroy Palestinian houses in Rafah. The woman, Rachel Corrie, 23, of Olympia, Washington, was taken to a hospital where she died of her injuries. She was a senior in Evergreen State College in Olympia, but was not enrolled this quarter, the school said. Since January, she had been working with the Palestinian-led International Solidarity Movement to protest Israeli actions to occupied territories, said Huwaida Araf, co-founder of the group. Corrie had recently appeared in a televised mock trial in Gaza in which President Bush was accused of war crimes for his alleged support of Israel's actions in Gaza. This morning, when she was killed, she was attempting to prevent the Israeli military from destroying Palestinian civilian homes, Araf said. She was raising her hands and yelling at the bulldozer driver to stop. The bulldozer driver paid no attention. He buried Rachel with dirt, which ended up obviously knocking her down. Then he ran her over, and then reversed and ran her over again. There's video of it as well. Israel claimed that it was an accident. Okay? It doesn't end there. For years and years, and even now apparently, Israel and Israeli citizens and Zionists have made fun of Rachel Corrie. They used to make pancakes with her face on it to celebrate her state-sponsored execution. They threw Rachel Corrie pancakes party where they made pancakes and jokes about how they crushed and flattened her body. Now, it doesn't end there. Ben Shapiro mocked Rachel Corrie. Would love to write a book called Great Idiots of History. Rachel Corrie would make that list. Ben Shapiro mocked a late hero and activist Rachel Corrie, who was killed by an Israeli bulldozer when she protested the demolition of Palestinian homes in Gaza. Ben Shapiro referred to her as one of the great idiots of history. But y'all was okay with Ben Shapiro doing the same thing to Trayvon Martin? Who is y'all? Like, this has got to be a bot, right? That's got to be fucking CIA right there. Nice try, CIA. Who's y'all? Imagine writing this in the fucking replies of Mint Press News, dude. Get the fuck out of here, dumbass. The fuck do you mean? Oh, y'all was okay with Ben Shapiro talking about the fucking execution and making light of an execution of a black American teenager? Get the fuck out of here, idiot. Yeah, Shireen Abu Akleh in 2022, a prominent Palestinian American journalist reporting for Al Jazeera in Jenin, occupied West Bank. IDF shot her while she was reporting about a raid. She died from the gunshot wound. America did nothing about it. Jacob Flickinger, 2024, killed in Gaza while he and his other volunteer crew were driving on a road that was designated safe humanitarian route by Israel. He was handing out food to people in Gaza. America did nothing about it. Mohammed Kaddour, while he was alongside the hillsides in Biddu, West Bank. An Israeli government opened fire on the car and he was killed. Opened fire on the car he was in and killed a 17-year-old. America did nothing about it. Tawfiq Abdul-Jabbar, 2024, 17-year-old Palestinian American from New Orleans, was driving on a highway in the West Bank when he was shot and killed by an IDF soldier. America did nothing about it. There are so many more stories, by the way. This is only a handful. This person was in World Central Kitchen, by the way, for those of you who don't know. You have to understand. People will be like, dual loyalty, dual loyalty. It's like, no, dog, it's single, okay? Loyalty to the almighty dollar. And what some at the tippy top assume is the smart decision to make in our undying commitment to Israel. Okay, that's what this is. Kayvon writes, I've been trying to avoid getting worked up on this site, but this is truly some of the vilest shit I've ever seen. An actual rabbi who serves as the chairman of the Kentucky Jewish Council posting a GIF mocking the murder of Rachel Corrie. This is like a religious figure. It's a prominent member in the Jewish community in Kentucky. And they're fucking making jokes about like murdering an American activist. Like, this is perhaps one of the greatest indications that like Zionism is one, anti-Semitic, and two, it's a fascist ideology that will take someone who's supposed to be like a religious person, a moral person, right? Like a figurehead in the community, and turn them into fucking monsters. If this is how the religious leader of a community thinks about the murder of a white American woman, just imagine how he must feel about the thousands of Palestinians who've been slaughtered in the last 10 months. Of course, I was instantly blocked and the tweet was also deleted, but it sat there for 4 hours. He only deleted because someone took the pain to push back. In any case, really wonder how much media attention something like this would have gotten if an imam had done it. No, he's not a moral person. I'm saying he's supposed to be. No, this is like a moral figurehead in the fucking community is what I'm saying. In theory, chat, in theory. I want to bring attention to Reddit shadow banning the post from Our World News after it got traction and people were critical of Israel. Yeah. I mean, Reddit is completely fucking, dude. 3 hours ago, U.S. activist shot dead as Israeli military opened fire on West Bank protests. Sorry, this post has been removed by the moderators of r/World News. Reddit is so fucking cooked.
The West Bank hospital.
Anyway, let's continue. With
says an American woman is dead after being shot at a protest. The Associated Press reports witnesses and Palestinian media say the 26-year-old was shot in the head by Israeli troops. Foreign correspondent Marcus Moore joins me now from Jerusalem with the latest on that. Marcus, what are you learning so far about this death and how it happened?
Diane, still information is still coming in, very preliminary at this point, but the woman who we were talking about has been identified as 26-year-old Ayşenur Ezgi, and she's a dual American Turkish citizen, and she was in the West Bank, has been part of efforts to protect Palestinian farmers from Israeli settlers, and she was reportedly taking part in an anti-settlement march when, according to early reports, IDF soldiers shot her in the head during some type of clashes that were happening at the time. Now, based on a statement that we received from the IDF, it does not appear that she was the target of the IDF soldiers and that perhaps they were targeting someone else when she was hit. Again, these details are still very cloudy and murky at this point, but we know that she was killed. She was rushed to an area hospital where she later died. Now, U.S. officials in a statement offered their condolences and said that they are looking into the circumstances here, while Turkey's Ministry of Foreign Affairs put out a statement condemning the shooting, saying in part that Ezgi was murdered by the Netanyahu government and that Israel is trying to intimidate anyone who comes to the aid of Palestinians.
I mean, they did this in Gaza. They do it in the West Bank. I just don't understand it. Like that is precisely what they're doing. How can anyone try and fucking defend this? I actually don't get it. I actually don't understand how you, I mean, you have to be like a straight up fucking immoral, subhuman, monstrous piece of shit.
It was quiet. There was nothing to justify the shot. The shot was taken to kill. There were 2 shots fired from the rooftop. I've been doing this for 20 years. I know the difference in sound between tear gas, rubber-coated bullets, live ammunition. These were 2 separate shots of live ammunition, shot one after the other. The first one hit a metal object, and then a young man from the village in his thigh. And then I heard another shot. And then I heard people calling my name in English, saying, we need help, come help us. I ran over there about 10 or 15 meters behind me, farther away from the soldiers, into the olive groves. I found her lying on the ground beside the tree, bleeding from her head. I put my hand under her head to try and stop the bleeding. I took her pulse. She had a very weak pulse. We called the ambulance. From there, we evacuated her to the village's medical center, where the doctor came into the ambulance.
I know this isn't about you, but I'm sure this is personal, being a pro-Palestinian Turkish-American. Ironically, this is also why you said you'd never travel to Israel-Palestine. You're right. This is why it's always ridiculous when people are like, why won't you go and see it for yourself? Like when, you know, Zionist chatters will be like, oh, there's no problem. There's no problem in the West Bank. What do you mean? There's no problem in Israel. Why don't you go and visit it? It's like, there you go, dude. This is what happens when you go and fucking visit. Okay. There is no humanity. Okay. There is no respect for human life if you are not a part of the crowd that says unconditionally, I am pro-Israel. Even if you are sometimes and you don't look the part, you will still end up receiving racial hatred, animosity in general. Anyway,
and continued into the hospital where they tried to resuscitate her, but failed.
For the record, I've talked about a pecking order of American worth. Like the American passport is supposed to hold a very high price in the world because it's another form of like American dominance, right? But there is still a secret secondary pecking order of like whose American citizenship is at what value. Palestinian Americans are at the lowest rung of that totem pole, like the lowest. Muslim Americans across the board, like broadly, Arab Americans, Muslim Americans across the board are literally on the lowest end of that. If they get killed by our allies, whether it be Saudi Arabia, whether it be UAE, whether it be any of the fucking Gulf states, whether it be, you know, any of our other fucking allies, especially Israel, it doesn't matter. Okay? It still doesn't matter. When it comes down to it, with Israel, even if you are a white American Christian with no other connection, if Israel kills you, it still kind of doesn't matter. Even Bo Norelli, a total Zionist pro-genocide scumbag, went to the West Bank and admitted it was completely fucked up. What's baffling to me is how he can witness that heinous behavior from the Israeli government and not understand what they're doing, the same thing but worse in Gaza. It's because he's trying to triangulate like an appropriate position here. Okay, that's it. I don't believe for even a moment that he is genuine. If he was, it's just a liberal Zionist posturing. That's all it is. And I'm sure he will find a way to reason with all of this stuff too. Stop thinking that there's like an interest in humanity there. Okay, that's just a piece of shit. No other way to explain it. But yeah, it's hard to see this and not feel the State Department has a racial hierarchy for Americans abroad. Yeah, it's true. There is one. Muslim Americans, Arab Americans, they know this already. Okay, this is something that I've even talked about in the beginning, early October, when Americans were trying to leave Gaza and the American government wasn't doing enough to try to get them out of Gaza. I've been to Israel multiple times. I've always been profiled when leaving the airport, being asked if I sympathize with Palestine. What's the origin of my last name? Like, holy shit, I'm just here to install solar panels on the West Bank. I'm a white guy, by the way. My driver and I had guns pulled on us entering the airport checkpoint. Shit's so insane. I hate how Palestinian people are treated. I'm just going to say this one more time because she was a member of my community. These atrocities are not far removed from us at all. She just graduated from the University of Washington. I got to meet her at the encampment there. I didn't know her well, but a lot of people I know did. What I could tell, though, is how kind she was. She was welcoming and caring, and Israel fucking murdered her. Israel killing U.S. citizens is treated the same as police killing Americans, particularly those of color. Yeah. American activists shot dead in Occupy West Bank like it was a fucking random stray. This is why organizations like Doctors Without Borders exist or World Central Kitchen exists. It's to put fucking white bodies in the field of conflict so that the Western world actually opens their eyes to the reality, because they're so primed and so conditioned not to see the humanity of brown people being slaughtered because they're so used to it. They see it on television. It's like a normal part of existence for them. That's why That is precisely the reason why these organizations exist, is to put white Christian Westerners into the field of conflict so that there is a at least like to a certain degree, there's more care and consideration of where the bombs drop, even though the American government and the Israeli government routinely violate that. There is no greater evidence than the fact that since the World Central Kitchen Aid worker bombing, no American even thinks about that. It's just completely, it's completely been fucking wiped. Like nobody cares about it. Nobody thinks about it. It's not even a real thing. It must not have happened at all. Here's how the New York Times covered the story, by the way. The New York Times is manufacturing consent for the Israel's killing of American activist Ayşenur Ezgi. The only violence at these demonstrations is from settlers who attack and harass activists with impunity. Miss Ezgi, who lived in Seattle, had recently arrived in Israel as a part of a group of international activists who demonstrated in solidarity with Palestinians in the occupied West Bank. On Friday, she joined the rally in Beta, where residents have been protesting for years, sometimes violently, against a settler outpost on lands claimed by the village. The settler outpost is illegal, and the residents are not protesting violently. But you have to write that if you want to be like, that's why there was IDF presence there. That's why the IDF reacted in the way that they did. The Israeli government had recently said it would retroactively approve the outpost. It is so incredibly openly indefensible. And it's getting to a point where even Israeli citizens who have their own personal motivations, not because they care about the humanity of Gazans that are being slaughtered, but their own personal, understandable motivations to like get the hostages back, are now fucking criticizing the Israeli government, whereas the American State Department is straight up running defense not for Israel as a government, as an entity in and of itself, but for Benjamin Netanyahu directly, while also the American media is doing the same because they have only one fucking way of approaching the subject matter, which is just operate like stenographers for the State Department. I hope that much is glaringly obvious. Okay? This was an American citizen. Here's Prem. What's the message to Americans concerned you're providing aid to a country killing U.S. citizens? Is there any point that would lead to policy change? Here's how Anthony Blinken responded.
Thanks so much. Michael Birnbaum from the Washington Post. Mr. Secretary, we've seen these reports this morning about the killing of an American in the West Bank. Could you tell us a little bit about what you know about the killing of that American, Ayşenur Ezgi? What's your message for Americans who are concerned that you are providing military aid to a country that is killing U.S. citizens? And is there ever a point at which the killing of Americans in that region could lead to a change in U.S. policy of weapons provision?
Michael, thank you. First, I just want to extend my deepest condolences.
I'm going to run the 3-minute ad break at the top of the hour, by the way. I know it's 15 minutes in. I'm not going to do a segue or anything like that. I'm just running it.
Condolences of the United States government to the family of Ayşenur Ezgi Aga. We deplore this tragic loss. Now, the most important thing to do is to gather the facts, and that's exactly what we're in the process of doing. And we are intensely focused on getting those facts. And any actions that we take are driven by the facts. So first things first, let's find out exactly what happened, and we will draw the necessary conclusions, consequences from that.
They're simply, why doesn't the American State Department throw Netanyahu under the bus to secure Israel? They're just not. That's it. I don't know what the personal motivations are at this point, okay? But they're not. What they're doing is running cover and running defense. Here is DJ Judd from CNN. In Michigan, Biden says he's spoken to the national security team about the death of American activist Ayşenur Ezgi in the West Bank. I need more information. That's why I was late coming down, because I was on the phone talking to my team, but I'll have more information later. The reason why they're doing this is because they're running the fucking playbook of push it past the point of like media interest. They did a similar thing with the World Central Kitchen bombings. A little bit of repercussions came for Israel, like light, minor fucking slap on the wrist. Israel literally said, oops, we shot her in the head and actively opened fire on a protest. And Blinken is out here being like, but we don't know what actually happened. Fuck this school. Yeah. What they're doing is playing block and push. Okay. That is what they're doing. IDF, we did open fire in that area, and now we're hearing that an American is dead. Paragraph later, Blinken, first things first, let's find out what happened. According to the IDF, during operations near the town in Beta, close to Nablus, troops opened fire at a main instigator who was hurling stones at the forces and had posed a threat. A claim that a foreign citizen was killed in a gunfire in the area is being investigated. The details of the incident and the circumstances of her being hit are under investigation. If I know anything about Israel, they will, one, either falsely continue to smear this person and claim she was an instigator, claim she was a threat, and therefore they had no other choice but to shoot her in the fucking head. Or they will then say, oh, it was actually a Palestinian that shot her, which is precisely the lie they told with Shireen Abu Akleh, who was wearing full press gear, full-blown armor, and that clearly showed that she was press, and also a helmet, and an Israeli sniper rifle shot her in the neck in front of cameras. She's a member of the press. She was an American citizen. They lied and said it was Palestinians that shot and killed her. And they tried to do the same fucking song and dance that they always do when there is at least a little bit of Western media attention on one of their unlawful executions. There is a million of them, okay? There are thousands of unlawful executions. It's the ones that the Western world cares about that they at least are asked to defend, right? And once like a story becomes a story in the Western world, then they come out with the shittiest excuses possible and just openly lie. All of this plays a role in icing out the story, okay? Taking it away from public attention. Because everybody understands that like the media cycle and the interest cycle is short. So all you need to do is like sit back for at least a week and push the story back at least a week before less and less people give a shit about it. The American government plays a role where they go, oh, we just got to wait for Israel's investigation. Israel conducts its own internal investigation while simultaneously releasing false evidence over and over again, just fake bullshit, claiming that the Palestinians must have done it. All the while, the defenders, bots, and also humans behaving like fucking NPCs alike will come into any outlet that is covering the story with truth and demanding answers and will tell you you're wrong and an anti-Semite and that you're actually an Islamist fundamentalist. We know this has happened a million times since October 7. It's happened here many, many times over. By the time the actual truth is completely clear, there will be like a New York Times visual analysis unit coverage on the matter a month later that immediately clarifies and shows what the actual truth is, that without a doubt it was an Israeli sniper that shot this person in the head. At that point, it's a month too late. It's a month too late. And in certain instances, like with Hind Rajab, the American government is still collecting information, still waiting for Israel to conduct its internal investigations. It's been 8 months since an Israeli tank slaughtered Hind Rajab and her entire fucking family, okay? And also the ambulance that came that was in the deconfliction zone that had actually communicated with the IDF to go and retrieve Hind Rajab after that gruesome phone conversation took place. You saw it. 8 months. And the American government has not made a fucking peep about it. Here it is. The U.S. requests another investigation from Israel. Note, it is now 221 days since Israeli forces killed 6-year-old Hind Rajab.
هذه زيارة عائلة حمادة التي أطلقت عليها عشرات الرصاصات.
It's been over 2 weeks since Israeli forces attacked Hind Rajab's family, killing her aunt, uncle, and cousins, leaving her trapped alone in her vehicle. We heard her pleas to the Red Crescent Society. 2 medics were sent, all to be blown up allegedly by Israeli forces. I wanted to ask about the status of the inquiry into this.
So I think that question is appropriately directed to the government of Israel. I will say on behalf of the United States, we have made clear to them that we want that incident to be investigated. They have told us they are investigating it. It's our understanding that investigation is not yet complete. Should direct questions to them about where it stands, but we want to see it completed as soon as possible. And as I said from this podium several days ago, if accountability is appropriate, we want to see accountability put in place.
Any updates on Hind Rajab's, the investigation into the killing of Hind Rajab's family and the paramedics sent to save her?
I don't have an update. My understanding is that the investigation is ongoing.
So I'm wondering if you have updates on not just the investigations, but actual accountability measures in response to these? And if not, how can this administration's approach of relegating things to months-long investigations while not changing policy, all as thousands more are killed, be a justified approach?
Investigations in some cases take time. You heard me a minute ago say we want them in every case to be conducted swiftly, but not at the expense of thoroughness. So we will continue to press for not just full investigations, but when warranted, all appropriate accountability measures.
Secondly, it's been 101 days now since Hinderjob, her family members, medics sent to save her were killed. So first question related to that is there an update on the investigation into that attack?
I don't have anyone. I'm happy to go back and get you the latest.
Okay. Is there an update into this investigation?
Let me get you an answer on that and come back to you.
Is it really an independent investigation if the alleged culprits are the ones conducting the strike?
What I said, we thought it's appropriate for the government of Israel to investigate. They have said to us, and again, as I said, I'm not attesting to any of these facts. I can tell you that we intervened with them. They provide us answers. I'm providing them to you. And what they have said is they went to these agencies and asked for information, and it wasn't forthcoming.
Sure. So on that note, you said that the Red Crescent, the UN hasn't provided answers. Will you move to verify those claims?
It is not for us to do it.
Last month, when myself and other colleagues asked about the investigation into this, the department said Israel said that they're still investigating, and that Israel also said that the UN and Red Crescent did not respond to outreach from the Israeli government. I reached out to the Red Crescent, and they said that no, the Israeli government did not reach out. So has the Biden-Harris administration followed up on this alleged lie about the Israeli government, or sought to confirm any of Israel's claims on the half-year-old killing now of this girl and her family?
So we are in touch with our partners in Israel around the clock on a variety of issues. I don't have any specifics to read out as it relates to this conversation. I'm happy to check if there have been any additional updates, but to my understanding, this investigation is still ongoing, and I will leave it to them to speak to the details of it.
So I had reached out to the Israeli government as well, and while I was reaching out to the Red Crescent, they said they would get back to me with an answer, and that they did not. After we reported, the Red Crescent said that
well, it's really, I'm not a spokesperson for their response.
Thank you in chat for all the support for my sister-in-law's brother, Ayub, who's in Gaza. I clipped the segment and sent it to him, and he was thrilled. Please send the good vibes as he goes into surgery tomorrow. IDF soldiers have told the hospital they need to move in the next 2 weeks. Jesus fucking Christ. Whenever I talk to someone who is currently trapped in Gaza, who is experiencing a genocide, it's just like, I wish there was more I could do. You know what I mean? I wish I could just like fly a plane and fucking take all of these people out of there. Like, there's just nothing. It's just so, like, this feeling of hopelessness and the feeling of just not having any power when these are human beings who you can just, like, directly talk to, and they're just experiencing these harrowing conditions that our tax dollars are subjecting them to. It's so fucking frustrating. I hate it.
Responsiveness of another foreign
given
ministry.
that, this government gives them billions of dollars in aid, I imagine that such claims want to be fact-checked.
So we will continue to engage with our partners in Israel. We ask them for additional information. We ask questions when we see incidents unfold, and we'll continue to do that. As it relates to this incident, I'm not aware of any updates, and I believe this investigation is ongoing.
It's now 197 days since Hinderjob was killed, her family members were killed, the medics that saved her were killed. What's the update on that?
I don't have any updates for you. Go ahead.
Oh, that's Prem Tucker over at Zeteo, formerly of The Intercept, doing phenomenal work and tireless coverage. He texted me this morning, knowing that I was going to cover the story of Israel assassinating an American activist in the West Bank, and talked about how there's not much momentum or movement, but like 2 days prior to this, apparently Israeli attacks on Americans have been happening quite frequently in the West Bank in the past month, including a bunch of settlers beating up Americans 2 days ago, and no one else has been covering it, and the government's been ignoring the questions that they present. This is the situation at hand. This is Anthony Blinken, the fucking demon, and how he responded to the question, what's the message to Americans concerning providing aid to a country killing U.S. citizens?
Secretary, we've seen these reports this morning about the killing of an American in the West Bank. Could you tell us a little bit about what you know about the killing of that American, Aishinor Ejeh? What's your message for Americans who are concerned?
Yeah, this is what I was operating off of when I said I know what Israel is going to do. It's not because I have some fucking future foresight. I don't have future vision. I just know what they're going to do because I know what they've done in the past in a high profile incident like this. First, they will deny killing her. Turns out they did, like everyone said. The Biden administration will call it an accident, and then there will be no accountability or justice. Israeli leaders, Al Jazeera journalists likely killed by Palestinian gunfire. They were shooting directly at the journalists. New evidence suggests Shireen Abu Akleh was killed in targeted attack by Israeli forces. U.S. concludes unintentional Israeli fire likely killed American journalists. Israeli military admits Shireen Abu Akleh likely killed by Israeli fire but won't charge soldiers. Despite this and the massive list of war crimes Israel has committed over the last 11 months, the Biden admin is still calling for Israel to investigate itself for killing another American, Aishinur Egi, and the Western media is still acting as a stenographer for the Israeli government. It is so fucking frustrating to just know what is happening, like to see the truth that many people around the world see, by the way. It's not just you in this chat. Many Americans see this truth. Many people in the global south have known what this is. People outside of the sphere of influence of the United States of America have seen this and have recognized this for generations at this point. Okay? And you recognize it, you see it, your eyes are open to this reality. And yet those in positions of power just sit around and act like that's not going on at all. That's just not a real thing. That like there's nothing we can do. Or they just try a litany of different ways of trying to defend this action, this behavior that is truly repugnant, abhorrent. I don't know. This is why you have to keep protesting, okay? This is why you can't let up. You can't succumb to nihilism. The feeling of helplessness and hopelessness that you have in your heart when you recognize the truly inhumane actions of America's most important ally shouldn't stop you, okay? Because in spite of all of this bloodshed, there are definitely real differences that are happening all around us. We're inching towards the appropriate action inevitably being taken. You just can't give up. Palestinians don't have an opportunity to give up. They just can't go anywhere. They can't give up at all because they just have to live through it. You know, you should remember their resilience and continue as well. Disgusting. Monstrous pieces of shit in positions of power.
That you are providing military aid to a country that is killing U.S. citizens? And is there ever a point at which the killing of Americans in that region could lead to a change in U.S. policy of weapons provision?
Michael, thank you. First, I just want to extend my deepest condolences of the United States government to the family of Aishinur Egi. We deplore this tragic loss. Now, the most important thing to do is to gather the facts, and that's exactly what we're in the process of doing. And we are intensely focused on getting those facts. And any actions that we take are driven by the facts. So first things...
Like, no condemnation. Did he say this about, like, Hamas potentially executing the American hostages when Israel was like, yeah, we're not going to do the ceasefire, fuck it, we're going to try to, like, extract them militarily? Was there an investigation there? Was it simply just like, oh man, I'm offering my condolences, you know, a skill issue type shit? Why is it that some Americans have a higher priority than others? Like, what the fuck are you doing?
First, let's find out exactly what happened, and we will draw the necessary conclusions, consequences from that. As you've heard me say many times before, I have no higher priority than the safety and protection of American citizens around the world, wherever they are. Something I take the utmost seriousness. So if we have more info, we'll share it, we'll make it available, and as necessary, we'll act on it.
If necessary, we'll act on it. Here's Senator Van Hollen. The United States cannot just turn a blind eye to the killing of American citizens. If the Netanyahu government will not pursue justice for Americans, the U.S. Department of Justice must. The Netanyahu government, including racist extremists like Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, has fueled settler violence in the West Bank at the same time that it has announced new illegal settlements. The United States cannot turn a blind eye to these actions, including the killing of American citizens. To date, the U.S. has not received satisfactory response from the Netanyahu government about the 2 other Americans killed in the West Bank since October 7th, and the Biden admin has not been doing enough to pursue justice and accountability on their behalf. I have repeatedly raised these concerns with the administration, including when I met with Ambassador Jack Lew during my recent trip to the region, where I also met with the families of those Americans killed, as well as in 2 letters to Secretary Blinken and in further meetings with the Department of State. The Biden admin must do more to hold the Netanyahu government accountable and use American influence to demand the prosecution of those responsible for harm against American citizens. If the Netanyahu government will not pursue justice for Americans, the U.S. Department of Justice must. Why was the Dominican flag behind that cuck? It's because he's going to go fuck up Haiti more, because that's where he is right now. That's why. It's not enough that we're participating in atrocities in Israel. We got to fuck up Haiti even further, you know?
Ezgi's death comes at a time, Diane, of heightened tension in the region. Israel has been carrying out a number of operations this week in the West Bank. Those operations continue. And, of course, as new information comes out on this incident, we'll, of course, pass it along, Diane.
All right, our foreign correspondent Marcus Moore in Jerusalem. Thanks, Marcus.
I'm joined by the Palestinian ambassador to the UK now, Hussam Zomlot. Good evening, Ambassador. What more can you tell us about this incident with Aisha Noor Aidi?
It's really, really devastating for us, the Palestinian people, the Palestinian leadership, because seeing our people being murdered on a mass scale is something, and also seeing people of moral high grounds, of conscience, like this 26-year-old American who comes to Palestine as a peace activist to help protect, and at the time.
No, I don't. By the way, the chat are asking that Anthony Blinken is out if Kamala Harris wins, and he will not continue into another Democratic administration in the event of a Kamala Harris win in November, saying that he looks forward to having a lot more time with his kids very soon. No, this does not spell anything remotely positive for me. Okay? I don't care. You want to know why I don't care? Because what I need to hear from Kamala Harris is a direct separation from the Biden admin for her own personal electoral benefit. You need to understand that. That is the bare minimum. I need to hear a lot more than that. But if she's not even making these decisions that will benefit her, then why the fuck is my expectation that she'll put a person there that is like somehow a one-stater or some shit, you know? That's a silly thing to hold on to. Anthony Blinken should be in prison, by the way. If there was any sort of real rule of law, he would be. A lot more people would go to jail, not just him. The American president, American leadership, journalists.
When her government is failing to protect children from the wrath of Israeli settler terrorism and Israeli army violence, gets shot in her head and succumbs to her wounds. Truly, truly devastating. And it tells you all what you need to know, because nobody can say they didn't know. Israel has been doing this for a long time. It's chronic. And the U.S. keeps saying that they are devastated, that they are appalled. But this is not the first American to be killed, murdered by Israeli soldiers and settlers. Rachel Corrie, more than 25 years ago, was killed as she was trying to protect Palestinian children, actually to be precise, in 2003. And not just Americans, also British. Tom Handel, a young 22-year-old British who's a photographer, when trying to cuddle a Palestinian child, was shot in the head again by an Israeli sniper. All that you have followed in the last few months, the aid workers, the World Kitchen, 3 of them is British aid workers. And
Ambassador, I wonder what you make of, we've had statements from, as we just played there, from Secretary of State Antony Blinken. We've also had a statement from the White House calling for an investigation, saying they have asked Israel to answer their questions about this. Is the US doing enough on the situation in the West Bank?
Absolutely not. I mean, calling for Israel to investigate Israel's own war crimes, calling for the war criminals to come up with a verdict about themselves. Look, when an American citizen is killed anywhere else in the world, the U.S. is swift in sending the FBI and sending their own crews and enacting international judicial mechanisms and courts. But always when it comes to Israel, the U.S. is completely impotent. And so is the rest of the West, by the way. And that's why Israel has gotten used to Simon. Israel has gotten used to this utter impunity and killing with complete free hand of peace activists. These youngsters.
Well, they say they will look into it.
They have been saying this for 76 years. You know how many cases? Oh, we are looking into it. And I assure you, next time you and I will be talking about the next peace activist Israel would have murdered. And they would say,
By the way, this is like an ambassador that isn't even, you know, necessarily well liked overall. Like this is like a Palestinian authority, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's a Palestinian Authority figurehead too.
They would say we are looking
up to date on the situation in Jenin, because Israeli forces have now pulled out of that area.
Yeah, they have pulled out, leaving a tsunami, an earthquake that is man-made by them, complete utter mass murder and mass destruction of the basic infrastructure in the city.
This situation reminds me of the last time I was in the West Bank when an Israeli soldier, after seeing my American passport, told me to my face that he could kill me and nothing would happen. I mean, he was right. He is right.
City, including roads, sewage system, water treatment plants, hospitals, schools. They are doing exactly what they're doing in Gaza in Jenin, because never the target is these few youngsters who are completely disenfranchised from the whole political situation. That's not the target. They have inflated this phenomena that is Israel.
And to what extent is the Palestinian Authority engaging with the government? Because, of course, it is the Palestinians have their own governance of the West Bank. To what extent are they engaging with the Israeli government to try to negotiate better circumstances, at least in West Bank? Because obviously it's a different circumstance in Gaza.
The Palestinian Authority and the Palestinian government institutions is a target of the Israeli occupation forces, a big target. And it's not a secret that they have been withholding our own money. They have been really pushing for the Palestinian Authority to collapse from within, employing all sorts of policies and actions to weaken any national governance there. They are targeting the government in Gaza, targeting
How do you negotiate with a fucking person who has a gun to your head? Like, what are you talking about? And the person is like already used the gun on your family members, like killed your family members point blank. Like, how do you do that? Why didn't the Jews negotiate their way out of the fucking Warsaw Ghetto? That is what you're saying.
The government in the West Bank and everywhere.
We don't hear much, though, do we, from the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, notably since October the 7th. You come on Sky News and engage with us, which we really appreciate, but the Palestinian Authority has not been particularly vocal.
This is not Gaza. This is in the West Bank. Israeli soldiers share footage with Netanyahu's Channel 14 depicting them humiliating young Palestinian girls, women and elderly in Jenin during their invasion to the city. Their illegal invasion to the city. Yeah. Ghassan Kanafani said it best. It is a conversation between the neck and the blade. That's what it is. The Palestinian Authority is also basically a part of the Israeli security apparatus. So they are not only unimaginably unpopular, they're the second most they are the second most unpopular entity past the Zionist regime. Okay. In the eyes of the Palestinians, it's like Israel's number one enemy, obviously, for obvious fucking reasons. Number two, most vile enemy of the Palestinians is considered to be the Palestinian Authority. It's because the Palestinian Authority collaborates and colludes with the Israeli security forces. Target Israel and we will target you. ICC prosecutor says the world leaders threatened him over Israel arrest warrants. The International Criminal Court judges have yet to issue warrants for the Israeli Prime Minister and Defense Minister 4 months after the prosecutor Karim Khan requested them. Karim Khan told the BBC, several leaders and others told me and advised me and cautioned me. In May, Khan said there were reasonable grounds to believe that the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Defense Minister Yoav Gallant had committed war crimes during the Israeli assault on Gaza that has killed over 40,000 Palestinians, the majority women and children. They're using every amount of like backdoor pressure they possibly can, including directly threatening the people that are trying to move the needle on the international organs of justice. I still remain hopeful because of the glaringly obvious violations and the additional pressure that this will put, hopefully, on Western nations and their uncommitted support to Israel. But the situation currently is basically if the Nazis align with the United States of America, okay? That's what it is. Like if during World War II, the Nazis were able to secure an allegiance, like the business plot went through, FDR assassinated, you know, you got a Chamber of Commerce guy up there, Nazis aligned with the United States of America, history would be written very differently, because that's what's going on right now. You have a fascist government doing their own version, doing their own smaller, more focused style of a slower burn Holocaust, while simultaneously the American government is offering unconditional support. And the American government, of course, is a significantly more dominant force now, post-World War II, than it was before World War II. And there's no counterbalance or no counterweight to fight against it.